So, good morning. We are recording now, and the main goal today is going to prove Castelline's theorem. Hopefully, we will be able to finish that proof. So, the theorem states that every planar graph is Pfaffian. Okay. This is from 1963. And what this implies is that for all planar graphs, number of perfect matchings can be computed efficiently. Okay. Good morning, Kalyani.
Good morning.
Right. So today's main goal, as I was telling them, is to prove Castelline's theorem. Okay. But before we get there, uh, we need to complete another proof from last lecture that I want to quickly remind you of. Okay. So in the last lecture, we discussed the following proposition. So if you have a matchable graph, so that means it has perfect matchings, and D is an orientation of the graph, and you take two perfect matchings, M1 and M2. Supposing you want to compare the signs of these perfect matchings with respect to the orientation D. So then this proposition gives you a way to do that. It says that the sign of M1 times the sign of M2 is equal to -1 to the power number of evenly oriented M1, M2 alternating cycles. Okay, so just to give you an example of what this proposition looks like, let's go back to the last lecture and look at the example. So we looked at this example. This is a graph G. This is your orientation. So the orientation has been drawn on the same graph. Some edges have not been oriented because they don't matter to us. We want to compare the signs of two perfect matchings, M1 which is red colored and M2 which is blue colored. So you look at all the red blue alternating cycles. There are two of them, Q1 and Q2. Q1 is evenly oriented. There is an even number of clockwise edges and even number of anti-clockwise edges. However, Q2 is oddly oriented. There is an odd number of clockwise edges and odd number of anti-clockwise edges. So the proposition says that the sign of M1 multiplied by the sign of M2 is -1 to the power number of evenly oriented cycles, evenly oriented M1, M2 alternating cycles, which in this case is 1. So the product of those two, well, it's basically -1 to the power 1, right? In our example, because we have exactly one evenly oriented cycle. Okay. So that means that the signs of the two perfect matchings are different, because if the product is -1, then one of them has to be +1 and the other one has to be -1, right? So that is the content of this proposition. And using this proposition, we want to prove the following theorem. So for any matchable graph, an orientation is Pfaffian if and only if each conformal cycle, so maybe I should, orientation D is Pfaffian if each conformal cycle of G is oddly oriented with respect to D. Okay. So what is a conformal cycle? A cycle is conformal if when you delete the vertices, the remaining graph has a perfect matching. Okay. And we discussed that conformal cycles are exactly the alternating cycles. So in other words, a cycle is conformal if and only if you can write it as a symmetric difference of two perfect matchings. Okay. Are there any questions or concerns at this point? Okay. So let's quickly prove this. The converse direction is actually quite easy. Supposing you have a orientation D so that the right hand side is true. Each conformal cycle is oddly oriented. Then I want to prove that this graph is Pfaffian. So how do I prove that the graph is Pfaffian? I show that the signs of any two perfect matchings are the same. So let M1 and M2 be two perfect matchings of the graph. Then, well, by the proposition sine of M1 multiplied by the sine of M2 is minus 1 to the power number of evenly oriented cycles. Number of evenly oriented M1, M2 alternating cycles. Well, remember each M1, M2 alternating cycle is a conformal cycle of G. Each such cycle is conformal in G. Okay? And we know that all of these are oddly oriented. So which means that the number of evenly oriented cycles is 0. And that means that the product of the signs is a +1, and that means that the signs are equal. Either they are both +1 or they are both -1. Okay? Since this is true for any two perfect matchings, this implies that D is a Pfaffian orientation. Right? So this is the easy direction. Well, slightly easier. The other direction is not too difficult either. Are there any questions or concerns regarding the easy directions proof? Anything that is a bit too fast or not clear? Okay. If not, then let's prove the other direction. Now, supposing I give you a Pfaffian orientation, well, I'll prove the contrapositive. Supposing there's a conformal cycle that is evenly oriented. Suppose that supposing that there exists a conformal cycle C such that C is evenly oriented with respect to the orientation D. Okay, what does that mean? So we have some cycle in the graph such that the number of clockwise edges is an even number and the number of anti-clockwise edges is also an even number. Okay, this is a conformal cycle in the graph. What that means is that the remaining graph has a perfect matching. Okay, so this is a perfect matching in the graph G minus the vertices of the cycle C. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to construct two perfect matchings using this drawing that we have so that their signs are going to be opposite with respect to the given orientation. Can someone tell me how we will construct these two perfect matchings? So M is a perfect matching in this graph. I want to construct M1 and M2, which will be perfect matchings of the graph G, such that the sign of M1 is not the same as the sign of M2. If I can do that to construct two perfect matchings like this, if I'm able to do this, then we would know that D is not a Pfaffian orientation, right? And this would complete the proof. What remains to be done is to construct these two perfect matchings. Can one of you help me do this? We have a perfect matching after deleting the vertices of the cycle, right? I want to now construct two perfect matchings of the given graph so that their signs will disagree. Any ideas? We kind of went through a similar argument in the last lecture. Yeah, exactly. We'll take the alternating edges of C. So we will construct two perfect matchings. One will take these edges of the cycle C, and the other one will take these edges of the cycle C, and both of them will use all of the M edges. Okay? So these edges of the matching M will be red as well as blue. Okay? So that's how we construct the two perfect matchings. Um, so let me just say in words, how do you construct them? You take the matching M and extend M by picking alternate edges of C. So one matching will pick the odd edges and the other matching will pick the even edges if you number them odd and even, right? So now the sign of M1 and the sign of M2, when you multiply them, this is equal to -1 to the power number of evenly oriented cycles. Well, the number of cycles that are M1, M2 alternating is just our original cycle C, right? So that is exactly one cycle, and it is evenly oriented by hypothesis. So this is -1, and that implies that the signs of the two matchings are different. Okay? So whenever you have an evenly oriented cycle, you will get two perfect matchings whose signs are different. And that means that it is not a Pfaffian orientation of the graph. Okay? So this completes the proof of the theorem, assuming the proposition, which we kind of proved by just observations and examples. But you can turn all of that into rigorous proofs if you're interested. Are there any questions or concerns at this point? What we are going to need for the rest of this lecture is this theorem. This is an alternative definition of Pfaffian orientations. Alternative and of course equivalent definition of Pfaffian orientations, right? Which turns out in my experience to be more useful in graph theory because it just turns out that working with conformal cycles is often more convenient than working with all perfect matchings of the graph. Okay. So our next goal is to use above theorem to prove two facts. So the first thing we want to prove is that K33 is non-Pfaffian. Okay. Hmm. Right. I could actually put this on the assignment. Mm, nah, let's just prove it here. We'll put something else on the assignment. And second, to prove that, to prove Castelline's theorem. Okay, so that means that all planar graphs are Pfaffian. Okay, so let's begin with this. These will be good examples of the usefulness of the above theorem. So let's begin with K33. So maybe let me just state it as a proposition. Proposition K33 is non-Pfaffian. Okay. All right. Let's begin with a question. What kind of cycles are there in K33? And which of these are conformal? Anyone? K33 is a graph you know quite well by now. So what are all the possible lengths of cycles in K33? Anyone? K33 has cycles of what length? 4 and 6, right? And are all of these conformal, or are there any cycles that are not conformal? So remember, conformal means when you delete the vertices of the cycle, the remaining graph has a perfect matching. So what happens if you delete four cycles vertices from K33? What will you be left with? And what about 6 cycles vertices? If you delete all the 6 vertices of the 6 cycle, what will you be left with? So exactly. So if you delete a 4 cycle, you will be left with K2. And if you delete a 6 cycle, you will be left with the empty graph. And both of these have perfect matchings. We are going to assume that the empty graph is a perfect matching, right? Because it makes sense. Okay, so all cycles are conformal. Okay, so let's make we are not going to need all of these cycles. I'm just going to make the following drawing. So this is one way to draw K33. You draw K23 and then you put one vertex out there. So let me put that vertex in red color. Okay. And I want you to look at 3 cycles that are going to be important to us. One of them is the blue cycle. All of them are going to be length 4, Q1. Then let me take the green cycle, Q2. And finally, let me take the orange colored cycle, which is actually the symmetric difference of Q1 and Q2. Okay. Oops, sorry. My bad. I accidentally pressed the close button on my OneNote. Okay, so let me start the presentation again. Okay. All right. So what I want you to notice, oh, okay, I need to change the color. So all of these Q1, Q2, and Q3 are conformal cycles. Well, every cycle in K33 is conformal, but we are going to focus on these three cycles. Okay. And supposing I take an orientation of this graph. So my graph is K33. D is an orientation of the graph G. Okay. I want to convince you that in any orientation of this graph, all of Q1, Q2, and Q3 cannot be oddly oriented. So the goal is to show that in D, which is any arbitrary orientation of the graph, at least one of Q1, Q2, and Q3 is evenly oriented. Okay. If we can prove this, that at least one of them is evenly oriented, then by the previous theorem, the orientation cannot be Pfaffian. Okay. And that would mean that the graph has no Pfaffian orientations. Okay, so how do we do this? How do we show that in this graph, all of these cannot be evenly oriented? So let me make a separate drawing. I'm not going to use the last vertex anymore. The last vertex is just being used for the fact that these are conformal cycles. Okay, the rest of the argument does not require the last vertex. So this is Q1, this is Q2, and this is Q3. Okay, I want to convince you that at least one of them has to be evenly oriented. Okay, so let's set this as the clockwise direction. This is clockwise, right? So let's think about the number of clockwise edges in Q3. And I want to express that in terms of Q1 and Q2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this false equation and then we are going to correct it. Is this true? The number of clockwise edges in Q3. So I have an orientation of this graph, right? Let's see. Something like this. If I want to count the number of clockwise edges in Q3, what I can do is I can add up the number of clockwise edges in Q1 and the number of clockwise edges in Q2. But this is not entirely correct. There are some edges between Q1 and Q2 that are going to be counted. We need to understand how they are counted. We need to subtract the overcounting. Okay, so can someone tell me what will happen with these edges? Will they be counted as clockwise in Q1 or in Q2? What's going to happen with these edges between Q1 and Q2? Let me color them in red. What happens to these edges?
In
They will
Q2
be,
it is
yeah.
counted,
Sorry,
but
what's your point?
in Q1 it is not counted at clockwise, but in Q2 it is counted at clockwise.
Exactly. And that is precisely what Anand is also saying. They will be of opposite orientation in Q1 and Q2. So each of these edges, no matter how you orient them, you can change the orientation if you like. Even if you change it, notice that it will be clockwise in one of them. Now it is clockwise in Q1, but it is anti-clockwise in Q2. And in the other edge, it is clockwise in Q2, but it is anti-clockwise in Q1, right? So each of these edges will be counted in exactly one of Q1 and Q2, but you don't want to count them because these are not edges of Q3. So that means you have to subtract them, okay? So that means the correct equation is, I need to put a -2 here. So convince yourself that this is true, okay? But now, if both of these are odd numbers, then the left hand side is an even number, right? So if Q1 and Q2 are oddly oriented, then Q3 is necessarily evenly oriented. Note that if Q1 and Q2 are oddly oriented, then Q3 is evenly oriented. So that means that all three cycles cannot be oddly oriented, right? This implies that D, which was an arbitrary orientation, is not a Pfaffian orientation. And that implies that G does not have any Pfaffian orientation. G is our graph K33. Okay, so that's it. This proves that K33 is not Pfaffian. Okay. Any questions or concerns? Anything that wasn't clear? Okay. Next, we are going to prove. I don't know if we'll finish the proof today. We might, but at least we will get to the main points. So next goal is to prove Castelline's theorem. Every planar graph is Pfaffian. Okay. Okay. So let's try to prove this. Before we go to prove this, we will need a few other things. So I'll give you an idea of how the proof is going to proceed. All right. So first of all, we don't care about all graphs, right? We only care about matching covered graphs. Because if an edge is not in any perfect matching, then it doesn't really matter, right? So we can throw away all such edges and then we can look at the connected components, right? This is something we discussed earlier. So we won't prove Castelline's theorem in general because we don't care about all graphs. We just care about matching covered graphs. Maybe I should write the full. So we'll prove that every planar matching covered graph is Pfaffian. Okay? And the reason is other graphs do not matter. Okay? Good. Also, in this context, I want to say that if we prove this, then it also implies that K33 is the smallest non-Pfaffian graph, right? Because all graphs that are matching covered and have less than 6 vertices are planar. And if they have 6 vertices, then again, if they have less than 9 edges, then they are going to be planar, right? So this implies that K33 is the smallest non-Pfaffian graph. Okay. Of course, we don't need Castelline's theorem. We just need to check that all smaller graphs are Pfaffian. But well, why should we check that when we have Castelline's theorem? Okay, so we are going to need a few ingredients to prove this theorem. I want to state those ingredients first and then jump into the proof details. So the first one is going to be our theorem that gives an alternative definition of Pfaffian orientations, right? So first one is above theorem. D is a Pfaffian orientation of a graph G if and only if each conformal cycle is oddly oriented with respect to D. Okay. We are going to need Euler's formula. We are proving something about planar graphs, so we kind of expect to use something about planarity. And number 3 is an interesting ear decomposition type result. It's an ear decomposition result for two connected planar graphs. Okay. Why two connected? Well, you can prove it yourself. It's an easy exercise that every matching covered graph, maybe I should just write it out. Every matching covered graph except K2 is two connected. Okay. So that is why we are not going to care about graphs that have cut vertices, because our graphs don't have cut vertices. Okay. So these are the 3 ingredients we are going to need. You already know the first 2 ingredients. We have proved the theorem and we have proved Euler's formula. So let me start with ingredient number 3. Okay, so let's start with an example. I want to tell you this special theorem. So it's like ear decomposition theorem that we discussed earlier in the beginning of the course, but we are going to need an additional property of the theorem of the ear decomposition. So in case you don't recall ear decompositions, let me remind you what an ear decomposition is. Let's take this graph. It's a nice matching covered graph. Okay. Let's make an ear decomposition of this graph. So I will start with some cycle. So what does an ear decomposition look like? Let's start with some arbitrary cycle of this graph. Okay. So this is my graph G0, which is a cycle. And what the ear decomposition theorem tells you is that you can keep adding ears to this graph step by step, so that the final graph is your graph G. So G is our graph that we have chosen for our example. And now I'm going to add ears. So first I can add this ear if you like. This is number 1. So now I get the graph G1. Okay, G1 is G0 plus P1. Okay. Then I can add another ear. Maybe I will add the blue colored ear, which goes like this. Okay, this is my path P2. So G2 is G1 plus P2. Okay. And finally, I can add this remaining edge, green color, P3. Okay. So my graph G3 is G2 plus P3. Okay. So this is a near decomposition of the graph G. So it's G0, G1, G2, G3. And notice that G3 is the same as the graph G. Okay. So at every step, we are adding an year. We are starting from a cycle and we are getting the final graph G. Right? This is a near decomposition. But in this result, I want a near decomposition with some special properties. So in fact, it's not planar, it's plane graphs. We are going to fix an embedding. Okay. Are there any questions or concerns regarding ear decompositions? Does everybody kind of recall the ear decompositions now? Okay, good. So now I want an ear decomposition with special properties. So additional nice properties that will help us in our goal. Okay. So what we will do is we will start with a face of the given graph. Rather than starting with an arbitrary cycle, we will start with a face. So this is a plane graph. This is not just a planar graph. It is an embedding of a planar graph. Okay. So let me make this slightly smaller. Okay. So now I want to start with a face of the graph. So I will take any face. Maybe I will take the bottom 4 face, length 4. Okay. So now this is my G0. It is a facial cycle of G. Okay. And now I will add ears in such a way that every time the ear is drawn in the outside face. Okay. So first I could add, for example, I could add P1 like this. Notice that I'm drawing something in the outside face of this graph. Okay. So P1 is drawn in outside, actually we call it outer face, drawn in the outer face of G0. Okay. Now I will add another ear. Once again, I will draw it in the outer face of the new graph G1. Okay. So maybe I will do it like this. This is P2. P2 is drawn in the outer face of G1, which is G0 plus P1. Okay. And finally, I will add the green ear P3, and notice that again it is being added in the outer face. P3 is drawn in the outer face of G2, which is G1 plus P2. Okay. And again, as usual, my graph G3 is G2 plus P3, and that is again the final graph G. Okay. So this is an ear decomposition, but I have some additional properties. I'm starting with a facial cycle, and every time I add an ear, I have to draw it in the outer face of the current subgraph. Okay. So the theorem says that there is always an ER decomposition with this special property. Okay, so let's state that. Are there any questions or concerns? Anything that we discussed that wasn't entirely clear? Okay, now this seems to fit in the. All right, so let me state the theorem. Every two connected plane graph G admits an ER decomposition with the additional property, additional properties. What are these additional properties? First of all, let me call this ER decomposition. Let me give it a label. Right, so we already know what ER decompositions are, so I'm not going to write down the definition again. G0, G1, G2 up to GR. Okay. With the additional properties that G0 is a facial cycle of the graph G, and for each I, if Gi is Gi minus 1 plus Pi, so that is your ear, right? This is the ear. Then Pi is drawn in the outer face of Gi minus 1. Okay. So that's basically what we discussed. I won't prove this theorem right now. I might actually put it on your next assignment or something. It's not difficult to prove. Okay. We already know in ER decompositions that you can start from any arbitrary cycle. So you can start with the cycle, which is a facial cycle. And then you can think about how to use some arguments to make sure that you're always adding an ear in the outer face. But trust me, it's not difficult. So let me just say proof later or maybe on your assignment. Okay. But what I want to focus on is if you have this theorem, then how does that help in getting a Pfaffian orientation of the graph G, or for any matching covered graph, which is a planar graph? Okay. So our goal is to use this theorem to get a Pfaffian orientation of any two connected, actually two connected is not necessary. Let me say planar matching covered graph. Okay. So we are going to take an ER decomposition. We are going to construct a special type of orientation. And then we are going to argue that this orientation is actually a Pfaffian orientation. Okay. So yeah, apparently we are not going to be able to finish the proof today. So we'll finish the proof tomorrow. And then we will discuss some other results in Pfaffian orientations. And I might conduct a poll today to see if the students would like to have additional lectures next week to make up for the lectures we missed a few weeks ago. Okay, but those topics will not be tested on the assignments. Okay, so this is the plan for tomorrow. We are going to use this theorem and we are going to prove Castelline's theorem. Are there any questions or concerns? Is it clear what this ear decomposition theorem is saying? Yeah, I'm here for another 5 minutes, but yeah, we are kind of done with today's content. So feel free to leave and feel free to ask any questions. Okay, so I'll stop recording.